Hello, everybody, and welcome to Timeless Wealth. I'm Amy Dietz-Graham, and I'm here with Sean Durkin. How's it going today, Sean?
I'm good. My neck's a little sore today.
Your neck is sore?
My neck's sore. Like
What'd
I woke up
you do?
this morning. It was like my left side of my, like right here is like really, really stiff. And I kind of was wondering how I did it. I mean, did I sleep on it wrong?
Yeah.
But I think I know why it's sore now.
What'd you do now?
So I was doing a martial arts class yesterday morning where we were doing takedowns, and it just occurred to me that I was probably thrown over someone's back about 20 times.
Well, given that it's called a takedown, I'm not surprised that your shoulder is hurting.
So it's really sore. And then I decided after that, with no stretching or anything, I worked for a few hours after that. That late afternoon, I played my final round of golf of the year. Anyway, so if I kind of struggle a little bit like this or whatever, that's what's going on.
Well, actually, funny you mentioned some of these things. We're going to be talking today about retiring with purpose.
Ooh.
And so one of the things that we want to talk to clients about as wealth advisors, we're often tasked to making sure that people, have enough finances so that they can step away from what they do day to day now and enjoy their retirement. The challenge is what are you retiring to? And sometimes it comes as a shock. It's like, well, what are you going to fill your day with, right? Golfing, karate, whatever it be. So we thought we would kind of take
it's funny.
you through.
Many a Herman cartoon deals with the retired husband and wife that have never really spent any time together until retirement. And man alive, it's a grumpy comic strip. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. So a big part of what we do is we have those types of conversations as well. So we thought we'd fill you in on some of the topics we've had and kind of daydream about what retirement could look like in our lives.
Coming up next.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm joined with Sean and Jalal. Welcome.
Well, I mean, thanks.
So daydreaming a little bit about retirement. As we mentioned, as wealth advisors, we're tasked to make sure that everyone has a good financial backing when it comes to that date of retirement. But oftentimes that date comes a bit of a shock for many. You mentioned at the onset, getting to know your partner again. You haven't been in the household together for a long period of time. Getting to know yourself again. What is it that you like to do? One of the questions we ask when we do a financial plan is, what does it look like?
Yeah.
And what answers do we usually get?
It's totally understandable, right?
Yeah.
When you're retiring, like picture your life, right?
Yeah.
And you start, typically you start working in your, let's say late teens, early 20s, right after you finish high school, college, or university, and you're working full time for somewhere in the neighborhood of anywhere from 35 to 40 years. And it's rare that people can actually wean themselves, off of work over a period of time. It's usually you're working full time until such time that you're not.
Until the last day, yeah.
And then all of a sudden, you have this void in your life, and it's more than just time. It's also your, a lot of people look at work as part of their identity, whether they realize it or not.
Yeah.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, that's gone.
Yeah.
And all your colleagues, if you look at a lot of people, a lot of their friends arise from workplace environments rather than social environments when you think about it. And all of a sudden that changes.
It changes.
And it's a shock.
Well, when we ask the question, what does retirement look like? We usually get the standard answers, travel, golfing. And those are good things to have on your list, but you can't do that every single day. So
let's explore that.
Yeah.
Let's say someone says, like I say, I want to travel. Okay?
Yeah.
So when I retire, I want to travel. And I want to travel, let's say 14 weeks a year. Right? Which is a lot. That's a lot. 3+ months.
Yep.
Well, that's 25% of the year.
Yeah. What are you going to do with the rest of your time?
Right?
Yeah.
And then golf. Some people are really good at golf.
I don't like golf.
And they can play it a lot and they are good at it and it's fun for them. But a lot of people like me, we're not that good at golf.
Well, and what happens when the season ends and we go into the dreary winter? Now what are you doing?
But it's even worse than that, because if you're not that good, if you play more than once or twice a week, it gets frustrating for you because you're crappy at it.
That is true.
That would be me. Yeah. I don't like it. I'm not a fan.
You're not gonna get much better at that.
As you get older, typically you get worse at golf. Some people improve, but typically it gets worse. And so my point is, all the things you think you can do when you're age 50 or 45, it changes when you're 65.
Yeah. Well, when we have the benefit of kind of watching clients go through that step, right?
Yeah.
So we've seen clients do retirement really, really well.
Yeah.
And then we've seen others that really struggle with finding that new normal, their new routine. You know, the family dynamics have changed. You know, I've seen it in our own families. My parents have retired, quote unquote, but they both seem to be back at work, but they're in each other's faces a little more often than they used to. So it's, you know, they start to drive each other a little crazy and they need to take a break, but it's finding that new rhythm again
Right.
and then finding out what you like to do again. And so like,
I mean,
what
for a lot of
hobbies-
people, like going off of what Sean said earlier, that for a lot of people, your career, your work is heavily tied to your identity,
Yeah.
heavily tied to your personality, right?
Yeah.
It's how you view yourself. And then a lot of people, and maybe even for those individuals as well, when you're working and you're working super hard, whether as an entrepreneur or even just a normal, you know, salaried employee or whatever, you work really hard for that retirement.
Yeah.
You know, in the hopes that goal, that retirement is your goal. So then when you finally attain that goal, well, now you need completely new
Yeah.
goals and completely new aspirations because you got that goal. So
Yeah.
I think that's where,
Yeah.
and obviously you're at an age where things are, adaptability is a little bit perhaps more difficult.
Yeah.
So now you have to really dig down, you know, deep into yourself to see what are your new goals now. You got
Yeah.
the goal that you wanted to retire. Now what?
And for some, retirement it's changed over the years too, right? It
Yeah.
used to be, here's the date where I stop and I don't work at all anymore.
Yeah.
We're seeing more and more where people will, maybe they work part-time or maybe they leave that and they do something more of that's a passion because they have the financial flexibility to do that. But
Yeah.
people are living a lot longer as well. So they
Yeah.
want to do things that they enjoy, but knowing that they have the financial freedom to do it.
Yeah.
But they're busy doing other things. So volunteering for a cause that's really, you know, near and dear to their heart, or, you know, again, doing some consulting work or working for their same employer, but maybe on less days because they still need them around for their experience that they offer.
Yeah.
So I think we have one client, I think he's retired officially 6 times now.
Yeah.
And somehow he gets pulled back into the thick of it.
He's managed to stay away for like 7 years
Yeah,
now. It's-
well,
it's a
and
record
he
for him.
loved it, right?
Yeah.
So it's finding that normal and what it is you want to do.
Well, and here's, I think this is a big fear for folks, you know, when they retire, is they always hear the story of someone who retires and they're, you know, day one they retire and then they're dead 5 years later, you know, because they didn't have a purpose, they didn't have a passion, and for whatever reason, you know, call it dying of rust, I don't know, but they pass on. That, I think that petrifies some people.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
in retirement.
yeah. Well, and I think looking at ourselves, like Sean, you're pretty active. You know, you're into
I'm active in a lot of things, good and bad.
karate,
Good and bad. Good and bad.
But have you, you know, and your wife Rebecca, have you thought about what that would look like? It's a long way away still,
Yeah.
but you know, those are things to think about.
So a couple things that we've done in the last several years, because it's something, I don't know if we did it consciously, but it just kind of happened. We actually have activities that we share together, that we work on together, so that, you know, I'm part of her life in this and she's part of my life in it. And
Yeah.
we get along really well and we go out and do these things. So for instance, her and I will go to the gym quite often together and work
Right.
out together. You know, we participate in the martial arts together. Like for instance, her and I are going on this journey this winter, but, you know, to get our 3rd degree black belt, which involves a whole bunch of things. Like for instance, starting January 7th at 7 a.m, her and I on a Saturday are going to run out and jog 5 kilometers in the freezing cold before we embark on a whole pile of other stuff we got
God.
to do. That's going to be
God.
every week.
Saturday.
But we're pretty excited about it because it's a journey we're going to do together. Right.
Right.
And so the hope is that when we do retire, you know, she doesn't wake. I hope we retire together, but you know, she doesn't wake up and go, "Who are you?" We actually have an experiential
Right.
kind of, you know, life together.
Yeah. Well, I think that's really important, right?
Yep.
And I know retirement's a long, long way for me. And I don't see myself ever really retiring. I feel like I'd be
Same.
in the category of, I always want to have something. I really enjoy what I do. So in some capacity, doing this longer term.
Well, the other thing we're doing too, because this is interesting and it kind of relates to what you're saying, is we also are training ourselves now. Like for instance, when I'm downtown in Toronto a couple days a week, you know, I'm not with my wife and my family because my children are older.
Yeah.
So we spend a couple days apart.
Right.
And then we're now starting to do from time to time where she'll go on a few days for her vacation and then I'll go on a few days for her vacation separately, so that we learn not only to be together,
Yeah.
but we learn to be apart.
Right. Right.
Which, like, especially in my case, like absence makes the heart grow fonder usually when I'm involved in a relationship.
I love it.
So.
Well, sometimes I daydream. I'm like, where will my children end up? And maybe that will take me, will I be traveling to that location more? Or, what will they end up doing? Maybe I'll get involved. I don't know. Maybe they start their own business and somehow they probably wouldn't want me around, but maybe I integrate myself into something like that.
Well, what is your passion? Obviously it's way early days for you. Like, what are you, 25?
Yeah.
No,
Thanks, Sean.
like 23 and a half.
Oh, okay.
I mean, 25, Sean.
You guys are the best. You're trying to get on my good side.
But what would be your passion when you retire? If you woke up, let's say tomorrow, and you had nothing to do, you didn't have
so
work.
you're talking to somebody who's in the middle of young kids in the thick of it. Chris and I talk about it pre-children. What did we used to do? So we used to book weekend trips to New York and we walk for hours and hours until our feet would fall off.
Exciting.
We just love being outdoors. We love going into taking in shows and theater. I haven't done these things in years because of children. I haven't slept. Maybe I'll sleep. I don't know. I haven't slept, but
First year of retirement, I'm sleeping every day. I'm sleeping. That's all I'm doing.
But it's getting back to the things that you really love to do, and being outdoors is a big passion for our family. And we have a cottage property. I kind of envision us spending a lot of time up there. I grew up in a small town, so I like that environment a lot. Yeah. Love the city hustle and bustle as well. So kind of having the best of both worlds to enjoy it. So
well, and some of the best things in life too. I mean, you don't need a whole lot of money to do it. In fact, I'll be honest, in my world, some of the things that cost the most money, I enjoy the least.
Yeah.
And some of the things that cost virtually nothing. Like, for instance, I have a membership at an LA Fitness in Barrie that I've had for years. It costs me $40 a month. And one of my favorite times of any time is when I'm just by myself. I have my earphones in. I'm doing a workout. Yeah. And it's just me, the workout, and my thoughts. It's just fantastic. Training in the martial arts, it's really not that expensive at all. And I get a whole community I get to hang with. Yeah. So, there's a lot of things that people can do in retirement, whatever their passions might be. Yeah. It's not really capital intensive. Yeah. And gives you a whole lot of fulfillment in doing.
Well, I think a lot of our business owner clients too, they have a lot of experience, right? And you think a lot of the startups and incubator companies that are out there, we love those types of conversations with somebody who has years and years of experience. So I could see myself getting into that and, how business operates.
Consulting maybe startups and stuff like that?
Yeah, and not even, you could probably get a consulting fee, but even just kind of getting immersed in the energy of it all to keep you really engaged.
But it's interesting you talk about a consulting fee. I mean, I have a friend who, he's about mid-60s, let's say, and he was a successful business person throughout his whole life. He's one of my neighbors and a really great guy. He retired a couple years ago, and he was one of these guys that he just goes look, I can do whatever I want. So I'm going to teach. And he teaches at Georgian College, and he doesn't care. I mean, he cares about the kids. He just doesn't care. He doesn't have to sit there and, get barked at by the administrators or anything like that. He has a curriculum. He teaches it well, and he gives frank teaching advice to the students that he's teaching. His students love him.
Oh, I bet. They love him. They would crave for that.
They're craving for this. It's not some academic, because he's wise. He has accumulation of all this experience, and now his purpose now is to impart as much of it as he can to another generation.
Yeah. So to circle it back, did he always want to teach, for example, your specific neighbor? So he found a whole new passion, a whole new desire to teach, and
he literally
perhaps maybe even give back or whatnot. Because from the sounds like it, he doesn't need to really do it for the money.
God, no.
Yeah. See, there you go.
No. If I had his money, I'd burn mine. But at the end of the day, I don't think it was an epiphany on one morning he decided to teach. But I think you know what, you're retiring and you're working around in your garage or you're doing whatever you do, and then you realize this is a way I can give back. Yeah. And that might be volunteering at the hospital. I mean, that's one thing I haven't done enough in my life is charitable
volunteering.
Yeah, have not done enough of that, and that's something that I owe. That I owe this back in my life is doing far more charitable work than I'm doing right now.
Absolutely, yeah.
And Jalal, you've been into you're into everything and anything. Have you ever kind of daydreamed? You're very, very young.
Yeah, like how, in your case,
What do
Joel,
you think
how does a
about?
retired internet billionaire, recreate work? I mean, I've always been curious about you.
That's a good. That's a very good question. No, I haven't daydreamed, but I do have some kind of some sense of what I want to do. So first of all, I'm a little like you, Amy. I don't really think that I'll ever just abandon work.
Yeah.
I definitely look forward to the fact that like I don't have to work to actually live. Like I'm just working to kill time and to keep growing because
Yeah.
I think sociologically speaking, you do learn a lot about life and about society and about culture. You do keep up with the times as you're constantly working. Like
Yeah.
I've noticed that in my family, for example, like the elders in my family, the fact that they stopped working right now, like the ones that are retired,
Yeah.
I feel like there's a huge disconnect between them and the generations that came
Right,
after them,
right.
Disconnect a little from. So I do want to keep working, but there are a couple things that I want to do. Like I've always wanted to learn the cello, for instance, right?
Cool.
So
That's
Did you know
nice.
I used
never-
to play trumpet?
I used to play
I did
trumpet.
not.
Really?
Really?
Wow, what a quinky dink. Anyway,
I would not have thought. I would not have thought you know how to play the trumpet or used to play.
well, I don't know how to play it now. But
I know
used
how
to.
to play it still.
Really?
I do.
Uh-oh. Yeah, no.
Aren't you the best in the West?
I was a very good student. I will say that.
Good God, honestly. All right. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm really looking forward to possibly even like devoting some time to like write a book. I just love academics, so
Yeah.
I really want to.
We've actually had a few clients that have gotten into either writing parts of books or
Yeah.
writing a full novel. Like it's really neat to see the stuff that they get into.
Would your book have a lot of pictures?
Sean will read
all
it.
pictures, Sean, all pictures. But yeah, that's pretty much how I daydream. But for example, for me, and I think a lot of millennials, like you and I are both millennials, Amy, I think.
Yeah.
But I don't see myself like retiring and even if I like fully retire, I'm just not into like the whole traveling scene and
But Jalal, what you feel is very common because
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
I was your age,
yeah.
a long time ago,
Yeah.
I had the same thing. I felt the same thing. Now, I mean, look, I don't think I'm going to retire for another decade and a half or so.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I love what I do.
Right.
But where something was way off in the distant horizon, now I can see it kind of on the other side of the lake kind of thing.
And I think that's important. I think it's important, like the fact that you just said that used to be like me, or used to think like me.
Yep.
And I think humans do have to like, even the ones that are working now, whatever ideas, whatever plans they have for their retirement has to be kind of adaptable or malleable because things might change, obviously.
Of
right?
course.
Whether
And
things
then
completely in your
I
control
think
or
by
not.
having these thoughts and really kind of, again, getting reacquainted with yourself and like, what is it that I think I'm going to do? It also helps us from the financial standpoint because when you just throw out travel, it's like, well, how are you going to travel?
and
Is it
people-
like luxury, short term, long term? Like,
And I think people forget when it comes to travel, you do need a lot of energy to travel, and you may not have that level of energy unless you stayed. Which is what another thing that that I wanted to bring up: your health. The fact that people are planning for retirement, you must take your health, I think, seriously. Like me, for instance, I love snowboarding. Like when winter comes, I can board every day. From open to close, right? But the point is, I sometimes think about it, and although I'd love to board when I'm retired, will I have the health and the vitality to actually board? It's not easy. It puts a huge strain on your quads, on your knees, on your core.
Yeah.
So I'm just hoping that I can stay healthy enough that I can actually do that when I'm retired. So planning for retirement also takes into consideration
So what
your
things
health.
can you do now then? And this speaks to anyone who wants to continue on an activity or start an activity, let's say 5-10 years down the road.
Yeah.
What things do you do now to make sure you can snowboard for longer periods of time?
Well, me personally?
Yeah.
So, me personally, I'll be honest, within COVID, I've actually changed up my eating habits. I've stopped eating out as much, right? And even when I do eat out, I'm more conscious of what I eat.
right.
COVID really messed up a lot of things for me because I was hitting the gym pretty like religiously before COVID, and then COVID just shut everything down, and like your schedule just got completely thrown off. So I'm trying right now to get back into the groove of trying to stay like physically fit.
Yeah.
It's so
Not the
important.
biggest. It's hard.
So one of the key things as you get older, right?
Yeah.
Is your body, and this is very important as you move into retirement.
Yeah.
Your body naturally loses a pound of muscle every year you progress in age. So it becomes really important once you.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, absolutely. So once you crest the age of 45, that process starts going in earnest for males. I don't know what the number is for females, but it's a similar relationship.
Yeah.
So you have to fight in earnest that thing from happening to your body, because what happens is a lot of injuries occur because you lose the muscle mass and specifically around your peripheral joints, like your shoulders, your knees, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
The support mechanisms muscularly around them erode. And then that's how you get the crazy stuff that happens when you're doing activities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like a plan around that can be very important. Seeing a personal trainer, a nutritionist, and so forth to say, okay, what do I need to do? You don't have to turn around and become Arnold Schwarzenegger or anything, but
Yeah.
you should be
Yeah.
working on that
Yeah,
stuff.
exactly.
Yeah.
I just want to have like, the energy, the endurance, because when you're bored, sometimes you fall. I don't want to have to risk breaking like a bone just because I fell off on, I fell on a hill. And I still want, in all honesty, I still want to be able to do double diamonds when I'm 65 and 70. I don't want to have to go through bunny hills.
No, but you know what? Even
I'm no bunny hill.
the point of this conversation was to share with all of you, our listeners, what retirement might look for us and some thoughts around that. If you want to retire like Clint Eastwood from Gran Torino and shout at people to get off my lawn, and by the way, that sounds kind of fun to me
Yeah,
sometimes.
that sounds fun.
So be it. It's more about putting some thought into the purpose of retirement so that you don't wake up day one
Yeah.
with nothing to
So
do.
Yeah.
I have one last question for you guys. So
Sure.
You guys have a lot of clients that are obviously retired or close to retirement, but you guys also have a lot of clients that are still young, right? Maybe in their 20s, 30s,
Yeah.
40s, and they're still a little far off from retirement. So what would you advise them? Like what's your advice to them and how they, non-financially speaking, how they can prepare, mentally prepare, emotionally prepare for that retirement? Like Amy, you mentioned purpose, right?
Yeah.
How would you guide them from now, or what's your advice to them?
See, that's a big part of when we do the plan. That's the stuff we want to talk about. So a lot of clients will come in and be like, well, they probably don't want to know. They just want to know how much it costs. We don't. We actually want to know, like, what is the goal? Is the goal, to snowboard in 65? Like, we want to know the specific goal, because part of goal planning is, and you do this with any coach that you work with, is once you kind of articulate the goal, now you have somebody that's going to ask you about the goal, and you're more likely to keep that top of mind to achieve the goal when you kind of have that accountability part tied to it. But having those tangible goals of what it looks like and feels like, we can put that into the plan. We can have that as a tangible goal, not only from a financial standpoint, but as we're daydreaming and talking about what the future holds. Because your point is, things will change and they inevitably will. But it's having that as part of a conversation. That's the level of detail we want to know about.
So the financial plan, even though it's called a financial plan, will take into consideration
Absolutely.
non-financial factors of retirement.
Absolutely.
Ultimately, that's what it comes to life.
Of course.
Money's inanimate. When you think about it, it allows you to do stuff, but it comes to life when you're following your
It has no
passion and
inherent
purpose.
value.
Yeah.
It only has value
Yeah.
in terms of what it can get you. Yeah. And I think it's also important, like, to jot that down, even for those individuals and investors that are like in their 30s or 40s, to jot it down in a plan, because that way, if you ask your advisor 30, 40 years down the road, when you do decide to retire, for instance, hey, hey, Amy, I'm retired now. What do I do? It's like, you can go back to that plan. Well, hey, you told me, a couple decades back or 3 decades back that you always wanted to do this. Well, why don't you,
Well,
maybe pick that
a lot
up,
of young
and maybe
folks
you can
are
help
doing
them
it a
with that.
little bit different, right? They've seen their parents wait until a certain age, and maybe they're not as healthy as they wanted to, so they don't get to do the big trips that were kind of on the bucket list. So a lot of younger folks are saying, I kind of want to do those trips now. How do I budget for some of those big trips now, but also save for the future?
Gotcha.
So having that as part of, again, the overall plan is a huge piece for us.
So stay tuned. We might be having a few more conversations around this, and we might
Absolutely.
bring in
Yeah,
a special
absolutely.
guest or
Thanks,
two
Sean.
to talk with us.
Thanks.
Yeah.